Hi, Finlay. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us for a guest interview as opposed to just a guest talk. We're going to explore different facets of your career and expertise in branding. So I'd like to start with just if you give us just a little bit of background, and then we'll begin to peel back the layers of expertise.
Thank you very much. Firstly, thanks for the invite. I'm delighted to be here. It's a shame that we're not doing it in the old-fashioned way, because I love coming on to campus and I get a bit of an energy boost from that, and in the engagement and stuff like that. But hey,
Yeah.
here we are in this new normal. So firstly, thanks for that, and totally happy to share and give something back, because I appreciate the support and the benefit I've had from working with you. So
That's great.
I've got a kind of a little subtitle, and I say I'm not normal.
Right.
And people that know me are like kind of nod in agreement at that moment. But what I mean is, I did a business studies degree back in 19 oat cake, business studies with French, which was quite hip and trendy at that point as we moved into the new European Union and freedom of movement. But what made me unusual is that I actually set myself up in business 3 years after having graduated. The path was blue chip, the big organizations, the retailers, the brewers, the banks. That's what our training was, and it was a very good training to do that. So I convinced myself and my parents that I was going to go to the Alps for one winter season to consolidate my business and French training, and possibly follow a career in the travel sector, which I did, but not as we'd maybe thought. So having learned the ropes, a couple of management roles out there in the Alps, running operational teams, me and a friend said, hey, you know what, we can do this better ourselves, right? Full of it, 25 years old. Yeah. So I haven't really looked back from that. So I have to really call myself an entrepreneur. Sure. Right back from it's 1996. A lot of the people I'm talking to and possibly talking to now, they weren't born when I set up my first business. Yeah. And that took me on a path there that I've had businesses in that sector. That business actually still exists, but here's an interesting one for today. That it's now a digital business. Okay, sure. It's an advertising platform. So that was the Winter Adventure Company. Yeah. And we now operate it as Alpine Independence. Right. Yeah. So it's an advertising listing platform for independent operators like we were. Yeah. So it's a service that we would have used when we were operators. Now, the travel trades, just waiting to see what happens a little bit around Brexit and so on just now. But I strongly believe that there's entrepreneurs like we were then that'll find a way to operate. Mm-hmm. So we're convinced that we're just about to launch this new digital platform that'll be helpful for people. So it's kind of in your blood. You can't help it. If you see opportunities and you want to create businesses around it, you're an entrepreneur. So that kind of brings that side up to date, if you like. And I've been advising businesses now for 10, 12 years in different ways. Yeah. And through that process, I started to realize the secret sauce. Yeah. Now, here it is for free. The secret sauce is branding. Right. Okay. Now, the fundamentals have to be there. Sure. You have to have a good offering. The value proposition has to be strong. There has to be product market fit. Yeah. You have to, and then there's the core fundamentals. You have to know how to run a business. Okay. Like, know your numbers, financial management, basic marketing, right? That has to be in place. But the icing on the cake, when things get sticky, and we operated in a very competitive marketplace, right. Then you start to differentiate with brand. Right. So that's when I realized, you know what, if I really want to make an impact,
yeah,
and I'm, on a mission to help as many entrepreneurs as possible, and that starts, with people who are trying to understand the discipline or learn or, be educated in the discipline.
yeah,
I believe that's what makes the difference. So
yeah,
I established the consultancy,
sure,
Fresh,
right,
and that's based around fresh thinking
right,
for your toughest business problems. But the secret sauce is brand strategy,
yeah.
and that pretty much brings you up to date. There you go. There's almost 25 years of my career, if you like.
Oh, you condensed it quickly and you edited it well. You get, but I think, the anchor there is this thing called brand. And I know that Fresh has a singular, unique way of exploring and looking at brands. And one of the things that I know that you've brought to the table working with different companies is that a lot of companies still simply think that brands are about logos and very kind of low end branding thinking. Could you take us through how Fresh considers brands and the sort of tools that Fresh uses to explore and illuminate different layers of brands and branding?
Yeah, it sounds very highbrow when you put
Yeah,
it like that, Ronnie.
it did.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
That's a nice way. I should capture those sound bites. Now, listen, there's a bit of frustration in here because actually, we're in the education domain here.
Yeah,
And you're absolutely right. Quite a lot of what we need to do out in the marketplace is actually a little bit of education first.
okay.
And that's not always easy because branding is one of those, it's a discipline which is it's misunderstood, or
Right.
worse than that, people think that they do understand it, but they understand a different definition than we use.
Okay.
So when you're trying to engage with people, often they're like, no, my branding's done, it's sorted. I spoke to a graphic designer when I set my business up and it's done. So what I like to talk about, and you'll see that some of the metaphors or icons that I use are there's a theme. So talk about the iceberg.
Right. Okay.
And what I like to talk is, right, we know our basic science, we know that an iceberg, there's about a third above the water, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that is what the kind of common understanding or usage of branding often
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And that is part of it. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
The iconography, the logos, the
Yeah.
palette, all that's really important.
Uh-huh.
But what we like to explore is get under the water, and
Yes.
there's this 2/3 of the iceberg, and we know that that's critical, important, and potentially dangerous, right?
Right.
So actually, below the water, what we've got is sociology and psychology.
Sure.
I know the guys on the consumer behavior course actually probably realize already that this is a social science here.
Yeah.
It's not the coloring in element that some people get drawn to. And I understand why they do, because
Yeah.
that's tangible. It's easy to understand.
That's right. That's right.
Once you start talking about anthropology, and you have to use the right language,
Yes.
understanding how we as human beings act
Yes.
as groups, and the psychology of individuals,
Sure.
it's quite hard to get buy-in, because it starts to hurt a little bit when you have to stop and think about that.
Yeah.
And so I guess we've got to segment our own market to say, well, if you're convinced that that is branding and you're happy,
Yeah.
good luck to you.
Right.
And so another sort of talk I give is, you cannot rebrand,
Okay.
because there's these people stuck on the doom loop, I call it, because they don't understand there's anything below the surface.
Right. Okay.
So to solve their problem, periodically, once every couple of years, they rebrand by scrubbing everything out and drawing another picture.
Right.
So I've got another mission to try and stop that happening, but it's tough. Now, our main icon and emblem, if you like, which you mentioned, and you'll see the kind of reference between these.
Sure.
Is the snowflake. Now, I told you that I've got a track record. I've got affinity with snow and snow sports, right? I cut my teeth there. I set my first business up. So the snowflake on a personal level is a great icon for me. But again, right, what's the science? What's the kind of school science on the snowflake? What do we know about snowflakes? They're unique, right? Okay, so that's really interesting. So that's one reason why the snowflake works really well for a brand strategy framework. So that's what we're calling about, what we're talking about. The fresh snowflake, the 7 E's of brand.
Okay.
So we've got 6 branched snowflake, and obviously, if I was doing this in front of you, I would have my slides, and I've not done that. Let's just make this a conversation.
That's fine. Yeah.
So we've got a snowflake, 6 branched snowflake, and at the heart of it, we've got the 7th fundamental point.
Yeah.
But the second thing that we know about snowflakes is that they can change states, that they can, there's a metamorphosis from gas, solid, liquid.
Sure.
And that evolution is important to us as well. So again, you've got to have the right audience for people to buy in, and I'm giving you some of the kind of thinking behind it. If you're engaging with a fast moving consumer good and you're talking with their sales team, you maybe don't need all of this language, but for you guys to understand, yes, there's a pretty picture, but this is some of the thinking behind it. So I've got those 7 E's. I don't know, do you want me just to give you those just now?
I mean, so far, just picking up on what you're saying, that it's that idea that each brand is unique, each customer interaction with a brand is unique, and also that we've talked about this in some of the classes, and I know that you worked with Marty Newmeyer also, the idea that the brand is liquid, that it's fluid, that it's flowing, that it's changing states also. So those are 2 kind of fundamental underpinnings of the framework, and then that would be cool if you dig deeper with each of those kind of singular E's. It'd be great.
Okay, so I mean, we had great fun, and we were very lucky, weren't we, to get Marty to come up to Glasgow Caledonian.
That's right.
Now and actually deliver a session on one of these courses that we're talking to just now. And Marty's kind of unique, isn't he? He's the godfather now of branding as we know it. And so his onlyness concept is kind of what we're talking about, with starting off with this thinking to say, how are you unique? You're the only brand that blankety blanks, I think was how he ran his little workshop for us. So you're right. That's a very interesting starting point. And if I can maybe just jump to our the end point, if you like, because it's all about value.
Right. Okay.
So all of these other elements, if you like, bring value.
Okay.
And then what we try and actually do at the end is to say, look, here's the value of your brand. So we call that the equity, right? So that's a term that you're familiar with. And we've actually got another arm to Fresh. And this is how they join up. So Fresh Invest actually supports entrepreneurs who are raising angel or venture capital.
Okay.
And we've got an equation called the brand love equation, which we can actually quantify to say, well, your brand is worth, even at this early stage, is £1 million.
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, so everything we're doing in these building blocks comes to that 7 right? So kind of park that if you like.
Got it.
And then we start off, and this is often workshop driven, so very practical.
Uh-huh.
With the senior management team and founders, but then very quickly you've got to get everyone on board. So the operators, the salespeople, the clerks, whoever it is,
Yeah.
okay. Because this brand strategy can't just exist in the boardroom. It's got to exist everywhere. They've got to live it and love it at every level. Okay. So again, there's a sticking point because we start to talk about essence. Brand essence, and that's that uniqueness. Now, sometimes it's hard because we start to talk about the heart and soul of the business. So we have to go quite deep. Right. And you do that with a couple of projective techniques and so on. If we just ask people, what's your brand essence? It's difficult. But the founders, what's the purpose? That's a very common, popular phrase just now, but a genuine purpose. Why did you set this business up rather than over and above to make money? You might have an answer to that. Why? Why? And you're getting down into the essence. Now, hopefully, the founding team have then been able to articulate that into the brand handbook, if you like.
I'm with you.
But they often haven't. And so there's our sticking point. So the founders got this great idea about their brand essence, but the guy who's serving the beer or the coffee or making the widget or delivering the widget doesn't know that because it's not been articulated. So let's find out what the essence is, then we can try and get it.
And so you find it out and then capture it and articulate it so that that essence can transfer to everyone who is involved in delivering the brand, if you will. So there's a coherency to it,
and so the output of that finally, not there in the moment of the workshop, but over time, there's then a follow-up piece of work with senior management founders. Say, how are we going to do this? Are you going to record a video for your training handbook? Is it a PowerPoint? Is it printed? So it becomes part of the recruitment process, actually, then training. So quickly, I touched on those projective exercises. Now, they sound a bit kind of childlike, but they really work. So if we ask, right, what are your brand values? What are the characteristics of your essence? That's hard. So we muck about with some creative activities, classic workshop. What superhero represents your brand?
Right.
What pop or rock performer or band represents your brand? What movie star?
Sure.
And then, that's fun, but then why? What characteristics of Superman, Spider-Man, Batman represent your brand? And then you get the word cloud. Right. Now we've got something that could, that could work in itself. Then create a mantra from that. This is not a slogan, a mantra for the staff.
Yes.
And a mascot. Who's the guy that helps you write your copy? And that can be a brand mascot that you've created.
I'm with you. I mean, as you've been through this, it reminds me, and you'll know him too, but Edward de Bono, Harvard, lateral thinking, creative, kind of out of the box, all of those kind of projective things that suddenly can loosen you up and get you somewhere else, which is exactly what you want. So it's a really powerful tool there.
This is all green hat stuff as well.
Right.
This is the creative guys, and
yes,
it's not everyone's cup of tea. Okay,
no.
It takes the facilitator. There's a bit of skill, or quite a lot of skill, to be honest with you. And when you start to talk about the heart and soul of a brand, some people don't even believe in brand, let alone a heart and soul of the brand. So there's a lot of
important.
Okay, and so you know, that's facilitation skills, but yes, the Bono is one of them, and you know, there's a time and a place for the black hat possibly to knock those ideas down. Certainly not in that essence session. So you're right, and it's not always the pure creative people that are bring the most to that workshop. You know, that's something that we're finding.
Yeah.
Now, depending on how much time you have with a client, and that's obviously a budget thing, that we then start to look at emotion.
Right. Okay.
And we like to unpack what emotions should be at play.
Yeah.
Not just when consuming, but you know, across the whole experience. So that can work in parallel with what we call experience, but the emotion. So what are the aspirational emotions associated with your brand?
Yeah.
But then what are the actual emotions? So we can map that. Now, there's two elements to this. Again, how much time and budget is there? Can we do it just with the team?
Yeah.
But they're only one side. They're you know, helping to create the brand, the actual brand.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of premise behind it. You cannot rebrand because the brand exists in the head of your consumer, right? It's perception.
Yeah.
So really what you have to do is go and talk to or understand the consumer and the genuine emotions. They might tell you what the emotions actually are. So that can be quite a big piece of work. And then so just map that experience, and again, you know, knowing that the consumer behavior course is like that's really long, you know, all the decision making has to be included in that as well, and the post-purchase. I think a lot of brands are getting better at that. That's not about how was your delivery survey, you know, they really annoy me. You know, it's like, really, you know, if I've got a problem with the delivery, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's the dialogue, the ongoing relationship where the value really comes, right?
Yes.
And that's the sort of stuff that we drop down into our equity. The equity equation, right? Okay, what's this relationship like post-purchase? And getting people to kind of open up a little bit on the experience. So those are kind of like the input side, if you like, or what the operators and so on can maybe be more aware of. And then we jump forwards a little bit, and we ask, you know, how is this going to look in the future, right? That's your here and now, what's happening, and so on. But we ask, well, what does the future hold for your brand? And you know, we've had an amazing time, haven't we, to analyze, you know, the environment that we're all operating in, and you know, the status quo and so on. So we ask, and this is totally different if it's a heritage play, or if it's a trend fashion play. So how can your brand be enduring? You know, I don't try not to turn these sessions into too much of a brand management lecture, but it's like, well, hey, let's look at Coca-Cola. And learn some lessons from that, because there's almost a disconnect between what big brands do and what small brands or operators can do. And I'm like, you know, that's how my knowledge transfer. I like to take all the great stuff that you guys do and go take that to the SME market and go, well, what have Coca-Cola done to last so long, you know, from that original recipe, which was a pharmacist, right? And so how are you going to be enduring over time through your storytelling and so on? And if that is the play, then how are you going to evolve? And we've all had to evolve. So so this is a kind of future casting, future, you know, planning element, right? And so that's probably more with management that you do that session.
Yeah.
Where are you now? Where do you want to get to? And then how are you going to get there?
Yeah.
So we kind of put a stop in here, or a comma.
Yeah.
There's a risk in terms of the relationship with the customers, our customers at Fresh, because we say, right, execute.
Yes.
This is all very well. This is great. We've uncovered loads of great stuff in these workshops. I'm working with you.
Yeah.
Go and take that stuff and put it into your marketing plan, put it into your operating plan, put it into your HR plan. Yeah. Now you have to recruit those people to do those things.
Yeah.
Now, everything takes longer in business. That's one thing I've learned. And you say, right, listen, we're going to schedule something for 3 months' time. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's 6 months before you go, right, are you ready? Have you put that in place?
Yeah.
You know, and then we can start to understand the value, and we tweak, because we've got all the right tools in place, if you like, now. But that's got to go into the marketing plan, mm-hmm. You know, at quite a deep, immersed level. It's, you know, too quickly people jump onto social media and start mucking about, to be perfectly frank, without any depth, without that essence, and you're like, you know, you're wasting your time and money.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was another quick fly through. I hope not too long. Going through, the 7 E's there, and obviously we finish up at that the equity, because everything's based on value. You know, our work ultimately has to show value as well. So
of course.
So that's where we end up, Ronnie. Yeah.
That was fantastic. I mean, I took some copious notes there from, you know, running through that each brand is unique and then it will change, it's dynamic. The essence idea is essentially the cornerstone that begins to feed these other E's, building up to ultimately the execution and equity. And I really liked, and this will resonate with some of the audience, that the idea that how the brand managers perceive the emotional connection and the touch points in the consumer journey may not indeed reflect what the consumer is going through. I liked what you talked about, that there's almost a mapping exercise between those two. You know, that was great. And then the other kind of key takeaways that I was seeing there was this idea that the brand and the relationship with the audience is going to evolve and change. And this leads to longevity and loyalty and endurance and so on. So, I mean, there's a lot of powerful thinking within it. And I know maybe you could talk a little bit about the different contexts. I mean, do you find that the framework travels well to different branding arenas? Not to put you on the spot with particular companies, but
no, well, it does. But I'll just pick up on one of the things that you said there, and I think you were right. I skipped over quite a lot of my career background, but I'll tell you what. Once you get to my stage, you realize that actually the value you can bring to people is sometimes in the mistakes you made.
Sure.
But so that's, you know, important, and I'll be open with you here that we maybe took this to market. Like, this is, you know, I'm convinced this is the really strong model, and I'll tell you why in a second. And it does work, and it's really powerful. Yeah. But we made the mistake of kind of falling into the, you know, that sales trap to talk all about the product and the features, you know, how clever this is about the psychology that's built in and so on, rather than the benefits, right? And
right, I'm with you.
Mental, and so that's right. I think that what you said there, that businesses have to understand that if they can build on this sort of structure, like it's building on sand if you don't have the essence there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what they're really interested in is the loyalty that you spoke about. Okay,
Yeah.
that really powerful relationship with the customer
Yeah.
through the brand. So higher value, people will pay more for
Okay.
a strong brand.
Yeah.
Put the loyalty in there, and then you've got any number of sort of multiples there that are leveraging your income in terms of turnover.
Yeah.
So we've learned to actually talk more about that. Do you want to increase profit? Do you need to improve loyalty? Then there's other issues like, do you need to retain staff or attract good staff? Though that's actually what wakes managers and business owners up, or keeps them awake at night, rather than don't kind of wake up going, I need a brand strategy. Well, they do, but it's kind of implicit, if you like, within their other needs. So, and then one of the other, it's not failing, but it looks so simple that it's like, no, tell me what I should be doing in my Instagram, and people want to get kind of into the detail, and tell me when I should post on Twitter or TikTok, and you're like, yeah, that'll come.
Yeah.
So it's the simplicity of the model, but people can almost think, well, that's too simple. Tell me, do more. Because of that simplicity, it travels across industry class. It travels across business type. So I'm doing a bit of work with a social enterprise, a KIC, with a charity, with a project. I supported a group at a university in Berlin.
That's right. Yeah.
Last week, and this is a program run by students for high school students around computer science. The same rules apply. Okay, there's no money changing hands there. The charity has a different type of essence and objectives, but it translates perfectly. Obviously, most of the business we do, private business, for profit. Now, lots of them have for profit and purpose, right? And that's what I prefer to work with, to be perfectly honest, and it works with the brand much better.
Sure.
And then it transfers across markets. So, that's in the European context, in Berlin. And, these guys were great, by the way, operating in second language and very creative in that workshop, Essence workshop. And had an interesting experience actually in the international domain. It's just been published today, but I was interviewed on a podcast, the Summit podcast. Go and check it out. It's good. Marketing agency based in Texas.
Right.
And so I gave the You Cannot Rebrand talk, and then had a good chat with the host around that. But it was interesting that, so we were using brands as reference points in the conversation. And I was talking, I think I mentioned Ford, or one of the automotive. And that means something entirely different to an American guy in his 40s than it does to me, because it's an American brand. And then if I mention Scottish brands, and in the warm-up chat that we had, I spoke about Brewdog, and so that as a reference for me is entirely different for him.
I'm with you.
But our framework, the Snowflake, absolutely works.
So there's several great things you say. The adaptability of the framework, and also, and we've seen this in different territories, the rise of sort of meaningful marketing metrics like customer lifetime value you're talking about, in terms of sort of getting people to buy a little more into this type of thinking below the iceberg, because there are really, the deep smarts are there that will put in place mechanisms to accelerate those things. So I like that. And also the cultural context that you're coming on to, that the lens, brands change by territory.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're confident that you can take that snowflake and that probably it means something entirely different if snow then at that point is possibly quite exotic, right? But that we're happy with that. We've got northern European roots, and that's fine. So what we do with the culture actually is we've got the snowflake, and it can like move around. Okay, all those things can build up from the environment that you're operating in and the environment you're selling to. Within the equation, the brand love equation.
Right. Okay.
And it's very simple, and we can share it, and I'm happy to do that maybe at another time. We've got plus C at the end, which is culture or context.
I'm with you.
So we can work out the kind of brand love, and that's modular, right? Case by case. And then we have to put this in plus C. So depending if we are talking about Johnny Walker in the US or Scotland or China, that varies. Or if we're talking about Brewdog in Scotland or England even, let's say, is there a cultural context that would alter the brand love? And yes, now it's not easy, and I'm not going to say that is 100% scientific when you're trying to quantify love. That's pretty tough. But so if I can just expand on what you're talking about a little bit, because I think Brewdog is a great example. Now, it's not a client of ours. We'd love to we're helping other sort of smaller crafty, but that would have been a great example to have worked with. I invested in Brewdog in the first round. Okay, so slight disclaimer in this. And people ask me, why did you invest in Brewdog? And I invested in the brand.
Right.
It was quite clear. I loved the beer. It was good beer.
Yeah.
As it turns out, I had a licensed premise at the time, and I was selling the beer. Okay, so I was sharing the love.
Yeah.
But their fundamental mission of wanting more people to love good beer, the way they went around that was more attractive to me than the core product. And they're a really good example of evolving. And I know that James Watt's come in and spoken. You've been very lucky to have him talk about that. And they've matured as a brand. They and you see that happening. They've been honest about it. So as a shareholder, we get a bit of insight into that, and it's fascinating. And they were very much the punk, equity for punks. That's very rebellious. A lot of their guerrilla marketing techniques were great fun, driving the tank down Bond Street in London and stuff, But I bought into all that, videos of them smashing bottles of Stella Artois and Heineken at the golf range. It was really rebellious. They've had to mature because the shareholders, to a certain extent, have kind of gone, boys, that's a wee bit insensitive now, and they're gearing up for an IPO to float the business probably next year on the market. But then if you put that cultural element in to say, they're Scottish, they're British, but well, hey, they've got their brewery in the US, in Australia, and China, and so on now. How has that evolved, and how do people see them within those marketplaces? That's a case study for another day.
It's a good one. I mean, you talking about that kind of anti-establishment, rebellious brand positioning or essence, but then, and which worked really well, but then is there longevity with that? You know, it can work for a while. That's an interesting point. Yeah. That brings us to one sort of question here. Do you think and obviously we're in strange times at the minute, but there's a moving target in terms of what consumers want from brands, you know, and we like image and identity and all of those things, or at least we have. But then with the digital market sphere, we begin to get to convenience and time and all of those things. So I know it's a big question and it will vary by product class. Future casting a little bit. Where do you think we're going with branding? What do humans want now?
Yeah, it's interesting times, as you say, but I think one of the positives, and there are many, you know, I think there have been many out of this whole episode, that a lot of people have stopped to reflect a little bit on what they really want.
Right.
And as consumers, I think that has included not just the functional element of how do I get things easier and delivered to my door,
Right.
but it's what brands do I want in my life.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a two-way thing. You know, who do I want to be involved with? You know, so there's that relationship thing, which is important for people to choose what brands stand for.
Right.
You know, so I think that purpose, genuine purpose, has become more important. And I think I can give you two examples of how people are still very grounded and do like traditional. Okay, they don't want to completely give up. They still want that anchor to the past.
Right.
You know, because the fundamentals don't change, but the delivery, they're maybe now more demanding, that they want it quickly and easily and you know, in a digital form. So two that Fresh have been working with recently, I think you'll like this. Go and check them out. SirGordonBennett.com.
Okay. Yeah.
Sir Gordon Bennett. That is, it's a marketplace, an e-tailer for British crafted goods.
Okay.
So they have to be really nicely designed. They have to look and feel great, but they have to do what they're meant to do. So it could be, you know, shaving kit for men, or umbrellas, or nice gloves.
Yeah.
Okay. And no footprint, complete e-commerce.
Right. Okay.
However, they have got a plan to go, well, you know what? The high street is broken right now. It's broken. Is there a way to reverse into it? And I think this would be an interesting model to take something, you know, like e-commerce, build your brand as an e-tailer,
right,
and then say, could we now go onto the high street? But it would be very experiential. It's not retail as we've understood it up till now.
Yeah.
Okay, but what I like about Sir Gordon Bennett is, so they've got these great craft brands, often, you know, really nice, with lots of work gone into these brands, very modern, you know, for the consumer that is really seeking quality and heritage and you know, all sorts of ethical elements as well. So they build up their brand from those brands.
I'm with you.
And then they've got this great almost mythical creature, Sir Gordon Bennett, right? We all know the phrase, and who is he? What's the story behind him?
Right.
And then we've got brand GB, Great Britain. So you know, the Union Jack is front and foremost, and they're very open and proud about that. And you know, all parts of the Great Britain are represented, and so on. So I think that's a really nice traditional modern brand. So so really nice.
That's a great example. I mean, we have talked in other forums about that idea of tapping into heritage and past, but being contemporary relevant, and also having you know, ammunition to move forward into the future. And what you just talked about, it kind of ticks all of those three boxes. It's a classic example of that. It's a very good example. As an aside, I know you have been exploring iconic Scottish brands. Is there any insight you could tell us what makes those brands iconic? Any core denominators?
Yeah, and well, what I'll do is I'll link it with
Right,
the second example.
right,
So, working with another business called B Bollywood.
right. Okay,
Okay, and so that is the Bollywood style dancing.
right,
So an early stage business based in London. Two ladies of Indian heritage,
right.
um, delivering dance and exercise classes, you know, in its most sort of fundamental form, if you like, you know,
Yeah,
service.
yeah,
But what they're also doing is bringing the culture, and
yeah,
they're very, very committed to their culture and history and so on. So this is it's a cultural experience. So they also do dance um, as an event, if you like, you know,
uh-huh,
for a birthday or for a wedding and so on. Excuse me. So we've got another kind of cross cultural element to this,
sure.
and it touches on spirituality. Right, it's not a spiritual product, but you know that's close to it.
I'm with you. Yeah.
And they're developing an even more traditional product called Kathak, which is a form of dance, but again, you know, is deep within the culture.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in helping them looking at how they grow that as a brand. So, you know, possibly through franchise or something like
Yeah.
that. They can't give away too much commercial information.
Right.
So that's Indian culture coming into the UK culture, if you like, you know, in a kind of second generation and so on.
Yeah.
So um, I've not forgotten about the
No,
Scottish
no, no, no,
iconic brands.
no.
I just wanted to make that connection first and
Yeah.
give you a little insight. I hope everyone gets a chance to go and listen to our podcast,
Right. Okay.
Fresh Business Thinking. Now, what I'll do is all these things I'll pop on a final screen
Right.
and share this up onto our YouTube channel if that works.
That's going to be great. That's going to work.
So everyone can then connect.
Yeah.
I don't want to digress too much, but please connect with me and us as a business now.
Right.
For a number of different reasons. Obviously, we'd love you to consume more of what we do, but
Right.
and I know this is a tough time for students who are graduating or looking at graduating into this difficult marketplace.
Yeah.
Look, get engaged on LinkedIn with the debates on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and you know this old model of education, finish, then recruitment. I think it has to
Yeah.
start earlier. So get out there, engage in the debates that we're having with people
Yeah.
about branding, about marketing. Get
Yeah.
yourself out there, you know, contradict people if you feel that they're saying things that are wrong, because we need fresh thinking coming out of the
Yeah.
university, the workplace, right? So connect with me and Fresh on LinkedIn and so on. But the podcast, so you'll find it on all the kind of normal channels, Fresh Business Thinking with the brand guys.
Sure.
What was interesting, and I try not to spend too much time in looking at the analysis, the analytics, excuse me, is that we're being listened to in India
Right.
by a factor of 5 times more than in the UK.
That's interesting. It relates to your cultural context thing. Maybe it's you know, one is becomes more exotic if you're from afar, perhaps.
And so there's, you know, if you go in and have a look at this, there's 3 different types of episode.
Right. Okay. Okay.
There's Life in the Brand Lane, which is a rock music radio show.
Yeah.
Guests come in, bring 3 tracks which represent their brand essence.
Okay.
And we try and connect branding to bands and bands to branding. Okay, so we have
Wonderful. Yeah, yeah.
classic rock. And there's fresh thinking where we have guests on and just say, look, let's think about things differently. And we've spoken to people from lots of different sectors around different things. And then there's the iconic Scottish brands.
That's right.
And it's been fun working with you on that. Bring a brand to the table. Is it iconic? What is iconic?
Sure.
And that's really popular in India.
Right, that's cool.
Now we know that there are big iconic Scottish brands that travel really well, and the whiskey brands almost like blaze a trail into these markets for us. They're absolutely mad for Scotch whiskey and malt in Asia. But then that gets us to thinking, well, you're right. Actually, is the podcast and fresh is that it's a service export, isn't it, at that point?
You're in country of origin branding.
We're iconic, but so we're then maybe playing on the brand Scotland.
Right.
What is brand Scotland? Okay, so we've got a very strong education, and in particular universities. We have had historically, through the Enlightenment and stuff, we are seen as innovative and good thinkers. We've had, okay, maybe some of them have been tainted in financial services. But I think just purely Scottish has its own iconic status in some of these other territories. And so people are interested to listen to that and understand what that is. So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh yeah, more than that. You're bringing an awful lot to the table. Just to go back and pick up on a couple of things, and you were mentioning, was it the dance school in London? And I couldn't help but sort of join the dots in the fact that the idea of mindfulness and Zen and the experiential aspect. You talked about spirituality and so on. Some of the candidates in the audience would be thinking about Pine and Gilmore experience economy, and that brands give emotional value, intellectual value, physical sensations, and so on. But also the move towards, well, not necessarily enlightenment, but that there's a spirituality, that there's a change of consciousness. If you could look at different domains like health retreats and spas and so on, those types of things, those types of values are becoming increasingly important, as well as you mentioned the idea of trust, and we're kind of selecting those brands that really resonate because things are kind of disrupted at the minute and so on. So do you think that that's something that brands should look at also, that that there's something sort of a little bit more elusive that you could get from the brand?
Yeah, totally, absolutely. And again, we try not to make the work that we do when we're consulting or advising sound too much like a business lecture. But those are all brilliant frameworks. And I particularly like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Sure.
And while people maybe aren't familiar with it, in industry, that's exactly what we're trying to talk about, is to get up to that self-actualization. And if we can see that possibility, and be Bollywood as a perfect example to say, look, it's not an exercise class, it's not a dance class. It very much is, getting up to that level where you're helping those consumers operate at a different level. And implicitly, if we can help brands that we work with get that message across, through delivery or whatever the interactions are, you're right, and that's the zeitgeist. It is, it absolutely is, that everyone's kind of gone, what's my life really about?
Yeah.
Why was I commuting? Why was I doing that job?
Right.
You know, maybe slightly differently from the end of the 80s, the end of the 60s, where there was
Yeah.
it just happened more naturally. We've kind of been forced into that
Yeah.
reflective state, and
Entirely.
brands can fill
Mhm.
it in a very transparent way. You know,
Yeah.
no, we're not being manipulative or
No.
devious about this. People need it. Humans need it,
Yeah.
right? And so brands can fill that space for people.
Yeah, I mean, just jamming off what you're saying, a lot of, you could look at music systems or headphones or whatever it might be, and okay, that the brand provides sonic quality or noise cancellation or indeed noise sort of definition and so on. But actually, you're buying an immersive, singular experience to create your own space, your own time, maybe to stop time, to step out of something. So you get it's a different thing. So a lot of the time, and I think if we go full circle, it comes all the way back to that essence element in terms of, brands are actually providing many more values and touch points and experiences than maybe even the providers think that they are.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's a nice example, and it would benefit from asking that why.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, why do you need such good headphones?
yeah,
And then you get to those very deep levels that it's actually about relaxation,
right,
it's
yeah,
about peace,
yeah,
it's about restoration of the soul. You could get
yeah,
there if
yeah,
you really want to,
sure,
and only if you ask why a couple of times to ask about sound quality, you're like, yeah, look, we're still at the functional level here.
right,
You know,
entirely, entirely.
so no,
Well, I really liked what you're saying there, and I appreciate that you're going to tag on the links to the different elements that you've got out there and different platforms and so on. That will add a lot of value and some good advice to those undergrads and postgrads to get involved if they're not already, to generate their own brand awareness and get involved in these conversations. I mean, I'm delighted that you would come today and take the time to go through that, and I know that the audience can go back and cherry pick. There's an awful lot of value in terms of where you went from the framework to the cultural context to the kind of shift in consumer values and so on, and emergent trends. Then anything that you'd like to close with? I'm delighted, Finlay, with where you took it.
no, I just echo those points and just reiterate. Look, please get engaged. Even if you disagree with stuff, I'm totally
Yeah,
happy. To enter into a debate with you, because I think that's how we can all improve.
yeah,
So yeah, if my technical skills allow, what you should see at the end is all those, but we'll also, I think the link will take you over to our YouTube channel. Is probably the
sure.
easiest way to do it, and in the
That's it.
comments as well.
Drop a
I'll
comment.
sure that's there, and yeah, no, it's been fun.
Yeah,
Obviously, it would be nice now to open up to questions and
yeah.
carry on the discussion. But yeah, no, thanks again. It, by doing this, it helps you clarify some of your own thinking and stuff. So that's
Sure.
I always welcome that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Finlay. I think that's a good place to leave it. Like you said, normally we would throw it out to the audience, so we will. They can post comments, they can get in touch with you, and so there's the potential for that dialogue. Thank you so much, Finlay.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Thanks.